Morning, all. It is Monday, the 8th of January. If I have my dates right in my head, anyway, I think that's right. Getting an early start today because the weather is unusually nice today, even though the ground is still wet. It's cold, but the sun is out and it should warm it up enough to be relatively comfortable to work in. Um, I was at my mechanic shop at 8 o'clock this morning sharp to pick up my leftover parts that he never got rid of, including the intake manifold, which has that piece on it I need for the back of the intake manifold. So that's probably one of the first things I'll do today. Today should feel like I'm making some pretty good progress. At least it will to me, because I should be able to fill up my cooling system with coolant. I have 3 gallons of concentrate and 3 gallons of distilled water to mix together to fill that up. I also have finally my oil filter, so I'll put that on and I can put oil in the engine. And I have my vacuum advance, so I'll finish with the distributor today and reinstall that on the engine. And I'm seriously thinking of today actually cranking the engine after I take the spark plugs out. I've been talking about doing that for quite a while, but I think I'm finally at the point where I can actually do that. I'm doing that primarily just to listen to make sure I don't hear any weird sounds coming from the engine. I shouldn't hear anything strange. And also give the oil pump a chance to prime the oil system a little bit too, I think. Um, I'm also going to fill up the oil filter with oil before I put it on there to also help in that process. I've got my battery trickle charger out here, even though I have a brand new battery. I'm sure it won't hurt to put the trickle charger on it. I'll probably do that after I've cranked the engine over a little bit. And so, yeah, I'm looking forward to today, working outside in the nice weather, working around the water still, but that's okay. And we'll see how it goes. There's my distilled water and antifreeze concentrate and oil. I just remembered I'm waiting on the call from Napa Auto Parts so I can go get my new modulator valve for the transmission and my STP oil treatment. Here's my oil filter. Here's my vacuum advance, and I got some more bulk hoses too. This is fuel line, 25 feet of it, ½ inch, and then there's some vacuum lines over here. That was all part of my friend's Christmas present to me, so I'm really helpful. Here's my old intake manifold, and there's that piece I've been talking about. I'm just going to unscrew that from this one and put it on my new my replacement intake manifold, which is on the engine right now. So I'm working my way through this today. Oh, other old parts I ended up bringing back too that we're still sitting in the shop. Old water pump, which I believe is good. Power steering pump, which I believe is also good. And vibration damper. So this is what this thing looks like after you get it off. It was really tight, as you can imagine. It was a 1 1/8 size wrench and a hammer that helped me break that loose and get it off. Never had this off before. I had no idea it had a extension that fits inside the manifold like that. It goes all the way down. So, and it's facing a certain way, so I guess that's why that's always got a face in the back. So I'm going to use my grinder wheel, my wire wheel on my grinder to clean that up a little bit, the threads and all that, and then go to the car and install it. Hopefully, I get the old one off. All right, there you're looking at the original style fitting for 67. That little side piece isn't there anymore, so I didn't need that little dead end hose anymore. So glad to have that back on there. Got it all nice and cleaned up and tight, ready to go. This hose is now tight on there, so now my cooling system is finally sealed. So at any point that I'm ready, I can start filling up the cooling system, as much as it'll take anyway. Up to 22 quarts, almost 6 gallons, but of course some of it won't go in until the thermostat opens after the engine warms up, so I'll get as much in as I can. I also took the tape and stuff off the top of here and cleaned that up. There was quite a bit of corrosion and stuff, so I cleaned it up, the scraper, and then my little drill wire brush, so that cleaned up real nice. I could actually put the spacer on there right now if I so choose, and I might do that. Seemed like there was something else I did. Well, I did some vacuuming too, just to make sure I don't get a bunch of crap inside anywhere. I also took a look way down on the hole here where the distributor goes to make sure that little shaft that runs the oil pump is actually in place, and it is, so that's a good sign. So I think right now my next step is I got the battery charger hooked up too, just to do a little trickle charging. Notice I didn't hook directly up to the battery posts just to keep from scratching them needlessly. So I got my negative over here and my positive right here at the starter solenoid. All right, here I am with yet my next challenge. They just keep coming. I thought since I'm not done with the carburetor, obviously I still have to rebuild it, but I thought, well, I can at least put the spacer on there, right? Since I just cleaned up the intake manifold and all that. So I opened my new repair kit here I got from Carbs Unlimited and discovered that the base gaskets that were in this kit aren't the right ones. They don't fit my carburetor. So I am not happy about that. I mean, they're not even close, as you can plainly see. They don't even come close to matching any of the holes that are there. So I don't know how they could have gotten it wrong when I gave them the stamped number that's on the carburetor. So not impressed with them right now, Carbs Unlimited. So I'm going to have to, now I question whether the rest of this kit's even going to work. They say it cannot be opened once it's been opened. I mean, it cannot be returned once it's been opened. But I'm going to call them anyway later on. They're on the West Coast, so I've got to wait some time before I can call them. But not impressed with that. So I'm not going to be putting my spacer on right now. I'll just cover that back up with some plastic or something. So getting ready to do the oil filter now. All right, I just finished filling the cooling system. Took the advertised 22 quarts. That is the capacity of the car. I'm actually surprised it took that much because the heater core is not even hooked up in the system yet. I guess the heater core doesn't hold that much, but still, I didn't think I'd get all 22 quarts in it before I even start the engine and warm it up, because I think it'll actually use a little bit more once I get the engine running, I mean. But I still have half a gallon left, ready to go. So no leaks, which is of course a good thing, and better not be leaking after all this. So the cooling system is good. Power steering system, hydraulic system is all sealed up and good. Um, I'm just waiting to pick up my STP oil treatment before I fill the crankcase up with oil. I think I've got, I think it's 6 quarts advertised capacity, so I can probably just pour the oil I have left in there and still have plenty of room for the STP as well, but I don't want to overfill it too much. And I guess you really can't see it from here too well, but there is a new Fram oil filter installed. I filled it up with oil first. Where is it? There it is. There it is. Fill it up with oil first. It took almost a quart by itself, so that's all good. So I'm going to go take a break now, and I'm going to finish with the distributor when I come back because I need the distributor in place in order to turn the oil pump before I bother trying to crank the engine at all. So that's what I'll finish. That won't take long. Basically, it's just installing the vacuum advance. All right, after looking around online a little bit, I decided I'm not going to bother trying to bother the people I bought the rebuild kit from, because the base gaskets are pretty common still, and I can get them easily locally. So I'm just going to order them locally and not worry about it. And I will assume that the rest of that kit is actually okay for that carburetor. It better be. I double checked the website just now that I bought it on, and that is the kit I'm supposed to be using. So we'll see how that rebuild goes when I get to it. So right now I'm back at the distributor. I have a new vacuum advance here I'm going to put in. But the first thing I'm going to do is adjust the gap here. And if you read my text that I stuck in my video from last night, I realized later that I was mistaken. That thing is adjustable. And the pivot point I was pointing out there down at the bottom is just that. It's a pivot point. In other words, the whole plate moves. I just, for some reason, I either didn't loosen this screw over here, and I think what was throwing me off was the fact that the vacuum advance is not in place to hold that kind of in place. So before I adjust that even, I'm going to install the vacuum advance, so that keeps things nice and tight in there. And then I'll make that final adjustment for the air gap. The only thing I got to be careful about right now is to not lose that itsy bitsy little tiny C-clip that's right there in that bag. It's so small. Sometimes these vacuum advances have adjustments, but this one does not. It's not adjustable as far as I can tell. There's no way to adjust it, and that's okay. One less thing to worry about. So it slides in pretty easily. That little part there goes over that little tab, or whatever you want to call it. So I'll put the screws in place and won't tighten them, and then I'll try and get that C-clip on there without losing it. Now you see the new vacuum advance installed in place. I have the little tiny clip on there. I managed not to lose it. I used a pair of tweezers here to make that happen. That's always nerve-wracking. Always worried it's gonna spring somewhere and disappear forever. What's interesting now is when I try to put my little gauge in between here, it won't go at all. So it's a good thing that I have this vacuum advance installed now. I guess that's partly how it changes the timing is by changing the gap here. I'm not really sure. I don't understand all the engineering again, but that's certainly what it does with points. So I guess it kind of makes sense. It changes the distance here, I guess, between the magnet here and this device. So I have to loosen this little set screw right here and make that adjustment. All right, I finally got the air gap set to the 30 thousandths, this little feeler gauge. Now when I run it through, it just barely catches, just a little bit. Now it's catching more than I like, but it's so little. We're going to call it good. I'm sure it's close enough. What I didn't realize at first is that this thing actually is adjustable. Found a little piece of paper that was in the box, and it says there's an Allen wrench in here fitting to turn, and there is. This does engage. So you're supposed to turn it in as far as it goes and then back it out the specified number of turns based on the part number on the distributor. And as far as I can tell, it's a C6 Victor 5 maybe. Let's see if that's even on here. C6. There's an F and an A, so I'm assuming it must be the C6V. I guess that's an F, not a 5. So and I don't know what else, but they're both the same. So 4¼ turns, it looks like, is what I need. Yeah, I don't see any other numbers that are even close to that. That is a C6, right? Yeah, I think it is. So we're going to turn screw to stop, then turn the screw counterclockwise the indicated number of turns. So that's 4¼ turns. So that's what I'm going to do now. And then finally, the distributor rebuild will be done. And I can go put it in the car. Although I'll be using a new cap and rotor, I will use the old rotor. This is pointing at the same spot it was when I pulled it out for reference purposes. So that's basically how it will look when I'm done inserting it back in the engine. And then I'll use my old distributor cap temporarily just to keep dust and dirt out of it until I get my new one. The other thing I'll do is drip some oil on that gear too, and also put just a thin bit of oil around that new seal before I slide it in. You see the distributor back in place in the bore. It went in pretty easily. You can see my mark is lined up where it came out. The only thing I don't like is that there's almost no adjustment left going that direction because it immediately hits that. So I don't know if that's retarding or advancing, but I may end up having to pull this thing all the way back out and rotate the shaft just a little bit in case I need more adjustment than that's going to allow me. This should be good enough to start the car though, because it was running the way it was. So I'm not going to try to second guess that right now. I'm just going to snug up the lockdown nut underneath there with my distributor wrench. I'm not going to make it too tight because there's a good chance I'll have to make adjustments to ignition timing while she's running. But the other important thing and reason I wanted to get this distributor back in there is now I can run the oil pump. So now I'm going to fill up the crankcase with some oil, pull out the spark plugs. Uh-oh, look what I see here. Nope, this didn't work. I have a leak. And not in a place that I ever expected to see a leak. Oh, that's not good. Where I put that fitting, it's leaking coolant right there. That's the last place I expected to see a leak. So that tells me, well, I'm going to put the cap on here to keep that covered and safe, but I'm not going to be cranking the engine right now until I fix that leak. And I think the only way I'm going to be able to fix that is to unscrew it completely again and put some thread tape on it maybe, or some sealant or something. I'm really surprised to see that leaking. I did not expect to see that. Maybe I didn't tighten it enough, but I thought it was pretty tight. So that's my the next thing I'm going to have to work at. I did not expect that. All right, here's my solution for stopping that leak. I just use regular plumber's tape on there. I believe that should work. We'll find out soon enough. I used the old one to keep it all from pouring out, although I lost some water, but not a horrendous amount. So I'm just going to unscrew my temporary one, the old one, and then put this one in and hook the hose back up, and hopefully that'll take care of it. I'm sure I'll have to top off the system again to fill it all back up. So far, it looks like the plumber's tape is holding just fine. I topped off the tank again. I didn't really lose that much water, thank goodness, even while I was frantically transitioning between the two holes there to keep too much water from coming out. So hopefully that'll take care of that. I'll keep a close eye on that when the engine's running and pressurized and all that. I'm going to take one more crack at adjusting that distributor so the marks line up, maybe with it facing in a different direction. I don't know if that's possible or not. Probably better off leaving it like it is, but I'm just going to give it one attempt. If it doesn't work, then I'll just put it back the way it is now. And at that point, I got my STP oil treatment now with the zinc in it. So I'll pour that in the crankcase and then fill the rest up with the regular oil. And after that, pull the spark plugs out. I've been talking about that for weeks, I think. And spin this baby and see what happens. It took a lot of cajoling, but I finally got it to where I want it. The marks are still where they should be here, where they were originally, and now the distributor shifted over a little bit. Now I have room for adjustment either way, which is what I was aiming for. I wanted it right in the middle, and that's pretty much where I got it. So I'm just going to put the clamp back on and just snug it up. I'm not going to make it too tight because I'll probably have to adjust it. Then I will be done with the distributor. I believe I'm done now. And no signs of leaking yet there. That's good. All right, we're at an inflection point as far as I'm concerned. This is a big, big moment right now. I've got my remote starter hooked up. The spark plugs have been removed after talking about it for weeks. And I'm going to crank the engine for a few seconds at a time and see how it looks, how it sounds, make sure everything is rotating like it should be. And most importantly, that I don't hear any weird sounds from inside the engine, which I should not, of course. I'm nervous, I'll be honest with you, but I'm sure it'll go fine. So, without further ado, here we go. All right, that sounded real good. I didn't hear any weird noises. The rotor and the distributor was turning, which means the oil pump is pumping. All right, I'm happy. Okay. Maybe that's a small thing, but sometimes it's the small things that matter. But I didn't hear any strange noises. She's spinning nicely. I'm impressed. I'm happy. I just hope that when it comes time to actually start it, that it goes as smoothly. So I'm still waiting on a few parts to show up, like a new distributor cap, rotor, wires. I guess still got to rebuild my carburetor. I'll get to that eventually. Should be soon. Um, Transmission modulator should be showing up any minute now at Napa, so I can put that on underneath. And my O-rings for my transmission dipstick and speedometer cable are also supposed to show up today. So I'm really getting close to the end here. My new thermostatically controlled fan clutch will be here, I think either Wednesday or Thursday, something like that, from Rock Auto. So at this point, I'm going to pause and see what else I can do today. Spark plugs are back in, so I want to crank it again just for a couple seconds. It should sound quite a bit different. Here we go. Yeah, it doesn't do anything at all. Probably because I disconnected somewhere. Let's see. Yep, right here. Must have bumped it accidentally. All right, I got cut off there by a phone call. Anyway, these things are really simple to use. You just hook it up to the positive terminal and to the starter terminal on the starter relay. Real simple. So anyway, I just want to see what this sounds like. Okay, sounds like a Lincoln starter to me. A Lincoln engine. I can't wait for this thing to actually run. All right, I just got the call from Napa that my transmission modulator valve is in, so I'm going to go grab that and come back. All right, I'm back from running errands. One thing I don't think I mentioned earlier, I was unprepared for how thick the STP oil treatment was that I poured in the tank rest. That stuff was like molasses. I was surprised at how thick it was. I guess it kind of makes sense with the additives and stuff that it has in it and what it does. So it's all good. Just something I'd never used before. Got some more goodies too, which is really exciting. I got the This is what I picked up at Napa Auto Parts, my new vacuum modulator with the white stripe. I have no idea what the color stripes mean. It's also adjustable, so I don't see any instructions in there on how to adjust it. So I may not worry about that. I'm not going to worry about that. Let's put it that way. I just noticing the fitting where the vacuum line goes is not a traditional type of fitting. I mean, I guess it doesn't really matter. I'm just not used to seeing it looking like that. So I'm not going to worry too much about it, but I will hang on to the old modulator just in case. Something I've been waiting on for quite a while are these little beauties here. 2 O-rings, one for the speedometer cable, one for the dipstick tube for the transmission. So those 3 things right there are really the last big things that I can think of that need to be done underneath the car still, other than the brakes. I mean, the brakes, I'll get to that eventually. I'll probably have the engine running before I ever have the brakes fixed. And also coming today, a little earlier than expected, a new distributor cap and rotor, so that's nice. That'll fit over there. I'll just take those off and put this in place. And also a set of Motorcraft wires for my spark plugs, and I'll get those on eventually. I'll just put them in the shed for now. So I'm just going to put some of these goodies on here and get toward the end of the day. It's been a really good day. I've been real happy. My battery chargers, trickle chargers on the battery right now, giving it some juice after cranking the engine, and all is well. All right, I don't have my earbuds in, but I think you should be able to hear me okay. So there's the old modulator just hanging down. I forgot there was a little shaft inside of it, so I recovered that and have it in the new one. Should just be a matter of screwing the new one in and reattaching the hose to it. I'm still a little unsure of this side. There was no instructions that came in the box with it, so I may have to, I think this is adjustable, but like I said earlier, I'm not going to worry about it. I'm just going to hopefully be able to just press the vacuum hose on it and be done with it. So that's where I'm at right now. And I had to move the cross member out of the way again to get to this stuff, as usual. And while I'm under here, I've got the dipstick tube, the bottom of it, sitting here ready to go. I'll take out that spark plug wire in a minute and shove that in there where it belongs. I've already got the new O-ring on it, as well as the speedometer cable. The other thing I wanted to point out too is that this new modulator valve is much shorter than the original one, so I'm going to have to get a longer piece of vacuum hose now in order for it to reach. Back up top here, I now have the transmission dipstick tube installed. It's pushed into the transmission. The new seal O-ring is in place. I've got it locked against the manifold here, right there. The exhaust manifold holds it down. Now when I pull out the dipstick, there, it's dry. There ain't nothing on there. So I know there's fluid in there. Obviously not very much, so I'll have to top that off eventually, but that's not necessary until it's time to actually try to drive the car, but just something for me to be aware of. Modulator is in place. I put a longer hose on it. The only thing left now is to feed this speedometer cable down there and get that from the other side, so I'm working on that right now. All right, I'm wrapping it up for the day. This was a great day. The weather was actually nice. I got a lot done. It was very productive, and I feel really good about the day. It was really exciting to hit that milestone where I was able to turn the engine over under its own power with a battery and a starter, and it just sounded beautiful. Even though it wasn't running, it sounded great. And I've pretty much completed my work underneath the car. The only thing left, really, and the reason I'll leave it on the jack stands a while longer, is I still have to attack the brakes eventually. So it just makes sense to leave the thing off the ground right now. So I got the transmission modulator installed with the longer vacuum line, since the new one is shorter than the original modulator. Installed the dipstick tube, installed the speedometer cable, and that was the end of the underneath stuff, really. All fluid levels are full. Well, that's not true. When I finally was able to check the transmission fluid level, discovered it's low, but I'm not worried about that right now. I'll deal with that at some point. I'm sure I'll be changing that fluid and putting a new gasket and filter on there eventually, but right now I'm still focused on the engine. So I'm going to go inside and reassess what I want to do next, but obviously one of the next things that has to be done still is to rebuild this carburetor, and I just realized I haven't got a call from Advanced Auto Parts yet about my base gaskets. I should have those pretty soon. And I'm assuming the rest of the kit is going to be fine for the internals of the carburetor. It better be. I'll eventually install the new spark plug wires. They're still sitting in that box right there. Oh, I did want to point out that I did discover, looking inside, it's really hard to see here now, but I noticed earlier it was actually wet. Oh, well, of course it's going to be wet there. Oh, the other end, yeah, the vacuum side. It was actually wet with transmission fluid. So that tells me that this old valve indeed was bad. It was leaking. So glad I listened to you guys suggesting I go ahead and change that. Glad that's done and out of the way. So that's it for today. Have a great evening, and I'll see you next time.